But the Yankees have a day, right now it's 2:23 Pacific time. We're sitting here at about 5:30 Eastern time recording. There's still some time left in the meetings to compliment Judge with some of these stars. And some of the rumors that we've been hearing, Rodon, the left-handed pitcher who pissed who who pitched for San Francisco recently, which I think might be another blow to them. I don't know if they're gonna look to retain him. And a few other top arms. Jake, who do you think we should be going after now, the rest of this meetings and beyond?
I am honing in on Rodon 100%. He is the arm that I want. I've wanted him for a minute now. His stuff is fantastic. I think he's a better, more polished version of Robbie Ray, even though he's only been good for 2 seasons, just because he's pitched to 2 full seasons at this point. I think that he's young enough where he could be the lefty version of Garrett Cole. If you just look at his stuff, the way that he pitches, he's that power arm that he's just throwing it right down the dick every time, and he's trying to get you out. He challenges batters better than anyone. I think he's got the bulldog mentality that also is representative of Garrett Cole. And I think that they could be two very complementary pitchers of each other. And it's another lefty to complement Nestor as well. So you've got the finesse and then you've got the power. He is the guy I want. You're looking at probably 30 million a year for 6 years. I'm pretty sure he wants 6 at this point because he is young enough to get that, especially with DeGrom getting 5 years. Anything's a possibility at this point. And he's going to have other suitors, but from what I've heard from Scott Boras, it sounds like he used the analogy the Yankees are swimming in the affinity pool. And that is a very good sign for us because that means that they're actually deep in talks with him. So hopefully they can get that going. I think that if you miss out on him, you try to get like a Jesus Luzardo on the trade market. The Yankees are currently at 41 players on their active roster, so someone needs to move either way. So I'd expect at least 2 players to be traded away, whether that be a Glaber, whether that be a Domingo Herman, who I think should be on the trade ship if they're actually looking to upgrade their pitching. I think we're going to be seeing some pitching moves very soon.
Yeah, and Fangraphs has him projected at 5 years, 135, which would be about 27 million per year. So I think Jake's right on it, with how the market is going. The Yankees to get him are going to need that extra year and that bump in AAV. So like a 6-year, 180, about 30 million per year there. The thing is with Rodon, and I think it needs to be complemented with moves, not only logistically, because once Judge is signed, that he's the 41st person on the 40-man, so
Yeah.
people will have to go. But also Rodon comes with the qualifying offer, which
Yeah.
means draft pick compensation would go to San Francisco if the Yankees were to sign him, as well as we went over the budget for the Yankees, and
So,
Rodon would likely put us even with dumping Hicks. We have what do we have Donaldson's salary.
yeah, our estimated payroll right now with the Judge signing is 250 million at this moment.
Yeah.
So if you add Rodon, that's 280 million probably
Mhm.
for 2023 payroll.
Yeah.
I'd assume that they're trying to move Donaldson and like dump half of that contract and then also move a Hicks or a Glaber. And that frees away another 25 million if you can.
Yeah.
That's the best case scenario I see there. So I'm sure they're working diligently right now to get that done.
So the first threshold that the Yankees were willing to break last year was that I think now it's 233. We're thinking they're going to sit in the 253 to 273 range, in which those players would get the salary above 253 gets taxed 50%. And then
Mm-hmm.
that's the first level of draft pick compensation. Then, you said we're sitting at 280 right now. If we sign Rodon, I think they're going to have to try and cut to under 273, unless Hal doesn't see an issue with it. But I think a Rodon type signing, any free agent with a qualifying offer, once you jump into that third threshold, now you're being taxed 75%. Anything above 273, it's extra draft picks, extra international money on top of the draft pick compensation that comes with the signing because of his qualifying offer. Um, Yesterday, I think it was the K show. I was listening to some sports radio, and the Mets are just sitting in
They're up there.
295, 300. Like they're gonna get taxed 90%
Yeah.
above going above, and I guess that is like the Cohen tax, which is
Like I know you're a
um
billionaire, but shit.
yeah, how billionaire is your billionaire?
That being said, though, like
Yeah, and part of the reason why 2021 was really frustrating is because the Yankees were insistent on going under 210, which is a crazy reality now, two off seasons later, how we did that and expected to be a winning team, just given some of the money that we have put aside. Obviously, other smaller market teams do it, but they're not paying Garrett Cole or Giancarlo Stanton, right?
Mhm.
So, um, but the reason, the justification to go under that 210, which in retrospect looks better now. I don't want to get into don't want to get into that, but it was to reset the penalties. And but the resetting those penalties, because the more you break that salary tax threshold, the more you accrue penalty over time. So that was part of the reason why the Red Sox went to dump Mookie Betts. And I think the players union saw that in the last CBA, and they were avid about softening some of those penalties, because what we saw as a result of that was big market teams being out on Bryce Harper, Manny Machado, Garrett Cole, even,
Yankees.
yeah, exactly. These big teams like San Diego should thank these old rules because they were going out willing to spend. They didn't have a lot of money tied up yet. They went out and got Machado and they paid for Hosmer, and
Yeah.
Hosmer didn't come back to bite them. They've committed money to Tatis, potentially Juan Soto. We'll see where they get with him. But now with this new CBA, the players fought hard to loosen these penalties. And we saw that there was kind of infighting with the owners between the big market and the small market teams, because the small market teams want the big markets to be penalized more for spending more, so that way contracts are deflated. But the union fought for players to kind of get more market value. So now I think Hal is more willing to spend, one, because this is the window, two, because the penalties for going into these tax thresholds are less than they've been in the past, and they still allow the Yankees to compete, and they're spending more on their excess revenue, and their excess payroll rather, but it's not as handcuffing as it's been in the past. Whereas, previous penalties, going 30 over, you're almost better off staying 30 under with the amount of money that you were paying with what you
Yeah.
were giving up in draft picks to some of these smaller teams. And so hopefully that incentivizes the Yankees to go full throttle. Our window is now, the clock is ticking. It is Stanton in his prime, Judge in his prime, Cole in his prime, for when we have good value on their contracts,
Got
and
one
then
more
some
year
of
of
the young
Stevie.
kids. Yeah, one more year of Sevy, exactly. And some of the young contracts before they hit arbitration, even, to come up and contribute now. So if Volpe, Peraza, we spoke in our last pod about Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez, those guys, if they can give you starting level or even all-star level contribution, they're going to get paid at max 15 million a year in their fifth, sixth years from now.
Sick.
This is our time to strike.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we haven't talked about it yet too on this episode, but left field is another place where there's obvious improvement needed. And that could be an interesting conversation because you've got Andrew Benintendi on the market. Obviously, the Yankees have tons of interest in him, and he's shown that he could be effective when healthy there. This like the second half of the season, he was our best contact hitter until his injury. So I think they're going to look to retain him. But you also have obviously I think Nimmo is a little far fetched at this point because if you are going out for Rodon, you're not going to have quite as much money to shell out to him. But he's still on the market. You have his former teammate Michael Conforto, who I think is another really solid option for a 2-year deal, just as a flyer, as a prove it, kind of what Bellinger is getting for 1 year this season. I think that could be a very low key signing for the Yankees too, because he is another lefty bat who's going to give you an 840 to 850 OPS season. Very sneaky good player. And obviously, like I think the one that both of us would really like, and J Ray as well, Brian Reynolds is out there. If you really want to go in, you've got this really good underrated prospect capital that is still very untapped. You've got a plethora of shortstops and middle infielders that can be moved. You have some good pitching like Clayton Beater, like guys that we broke down in our previous episode. So I think there are pieces that could be dealt in a situation like that because he is available now. So the Yankees have some really interesting decisions to make there.
Yeah, and for the Pirates, I mean, they won the first draft lottery yesterday at the winter meetings. Their window is not in Brian Reynolds' prime, right? So like we're looking at draft picks. Their early pieces are Key Brian Hayes and O'Neill Cruz, who are on their team already debuting. They're honestly looking at 2, 3 years down the road. to start being a competitive team again and building from their farm, which is getting it's not one of the strongest in baseball still yet, but it's getting promoted. So if they can take some of our top prospects in the farm while we're in our win now window and
Yeah,
give away Brian Reynolds, I think it's a win-win for both. Obviously, it's in the Pirates' interest when their agent comes out and Brian Reynolds says he wants to be traded, for them to say we're not fielding trades because you have to, otherwise the market deflates if you have to
just
say
yeah.
that you're comfortable not trading them.
Gary Sanchez was our starting catcher going into the 2021 season or 2022. So it's the same deal. Like, I mean, you're never going to get a straight up answer when it comes to a lot of the GM talk going into the offseason.
Yeah.
So I'm not concerned about anything they say there. Like, they know that their best interest is to move them now. I will say I really appreciate this new CBA because I think it does promote, this balance between building your farm up and building these young prospects up because they do create either good future investments for your team or good capital to be traded on. And then it also at the same time encourages you to go out and make these free agent signings. So I think we're seeing a lot more traction this season than we did last season for that reason.
And it's refreshing to have a winter meetings that actually means something.
Mm-hmm.
In 2018, go the last 5 years. In 2018, there was the whole collusion scandal where teams were refusing to pay players. In 2019, Cole got the contract, but then it was kind of crickets. 2020 pandemic year didn't happen. 2021, I don't think it happened last year either, did it?
Because we were in the lockout.
Oh, lockout. There we go. Yeah, from December 1st
Big one.
through
Yeah.
March, it didn't happen. So we had our signing frenzy at the end of November.
In November, and then we had like right when the lockout ended, there was another little mini frenzy. So like that kind of took precedent over what would have been an actual winter meetings.
Yeah. So this is a good time for baseball, and the rules have changed. So teams are being more aggressive. Trades are happening. I still think it's wild that they serve alcohol at the winter meetings. So maybe John Heyman was on a little buzz when he made his typo.
They're just
I'm also
they're trying to emulate that same energy when Ted Williams and Babe Ruth almost got traded for each other or some shit like that.
that
DiMaggio,
was
I think it was that swap, right?
yeah, DiMaggio, Ted Williams sounds God. I heard a story, I think Joe Torre might have been telling it, where the Yankees made a trade at like 2:30 a.m. and then they woke up and the Yankees were like, "Oh, we have to walk this back." And Torre and I don't know if it was Cashman or Gene Michael.
Michael, yeah.
Gene Michael, yeah. Um, they went to the execs of the team they traded with and were like, we're not gonna sign this. We can't finalize this. And then the other execs were like, "What do you mean? We made that trade?"
Like, yeah, eight
Well,
shots deep.
yeah. So going back to the pitching conversation, right now our rotation is Cole, Nestor Sevi, good. Then we have Frankie Montas, Domingo Herman are projected. So I
And then
think we need
Clark
one
Schmidt
more.
range, yeah.
Yeah. So we look at the pitching availability. Rodon Rodon's at the top of the list. Verlander gone. Tyler Anderson gone. Quintana gone. Martin Perez he re-signed back with Texas, I believe, right?
Yeah,
1 year.
he accepted the qualifying knock.
Oh, there we go.
He was one of two players. Him and Jock
Yeah.
Peterson were the only two.
Kershaw gone. Ross Stripling, who we said in our episode to sign Ross Stripling as one of our options, a good value option. Kluber still out there. Whatever. Uh, Bassett is still on the market. Walker's gone. Cueto, Tyone gone. So we're looking at DeGrom gone. I'm looking at by WAR from last year. That was the order I was going in.
Okay, I gotcha.
So we're
I figured
looking.
out who was best.
Yeah, yeah. So we're looking at being available. We have Rodon, who's top, who's had those 2 years. Ross Stripling, and then we're going down a tier. Corey Kluber, Johnny Cueto at 37 years old. Noah Syndergaard, who knows what Noah. I think Noah is still on the market.
He is. Yeah, he's a free
Yeah.
agent.
And
Um,
then like Zach Greinke, Kyle Gibson, Rich Hill, we're in that range.
Gibson's gone too. I think Gibson is with the
Oh, he's with the Orioles, right?
Orioles. Yeah, he's
Yeah.
the. That's a good signing for them. Like they're
Hmm.
actually trying to do something, and like they have the young core to be competitive.
Yeah.
So I'm full for that.
But there's an obvious tier shift here.
Well,
So
There's one more pitcher that isn't in there because he didn't play in the MLB last season. That's Kodai Senga. In
Mhm.
my opinion, I think he's the second best pitcher behind Rodon right now. That's
Yeah,
just the free agent market.
yeah. I think that would be a really good move. He's a proven pitcher at a top level.
Mm-hmm.
Go back and look at Kodai's 2017 World Baseball Classic, and we'll
Nasty.
see. I know that he won't. It would have been kind of cool if the World Baseball Classic timed up like the World Cup did.
Yeah.
But because it's like in spring training, and I think he was listed a few days ago. So there's the way that the international rules work for free agent listings is that from Japan, once you're listed, you have 30 days to sign.
So
Um,
he's actually he. There's an exemption for him.
oh,
I forget
really?
what it is, but yeah, it's something with service time or something along those lines. But he's got an infinite window.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. I assumed it was the standard 30 day.
Yoshida has that 30 days, but he
Yoshida
doesn't
has a 30
for
day.
whatever reason.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Cool.
that's like a whole nother thing to take into account there.
Interesting. So he could use the classic to play himself into a contract in March,
Yes.
potentially. Interesting. That's
Which I
really
hope it
interesting.
doesn't get to that point. I
I hope
really,
it doesn't get to that point either.
yeah,
Yeah. Because he's going to be good for Team Japan. Like Team Japan is always really good. I'm excited to see Shohei play for Japan as well. Their games are always at like 5 a.m. If he's still on the market, then I'm going to be watching those games. But his value is going to go up. I mean, I'm a huge soccer fan. Um, and I'm a huge fan of FC Barcelona, and we're looking for a defensive midfield replacement for the aging Sergio Busquets.
yeah,
And there's a young guy, Enzo Fernandez. He's an Argentinian. He plays for Benfica in Portugal. His market value around 20 million, 25 million to sign as a transfer. He goes in, he plays as a sub for Argentina. He comes in, scores a world-class goal against the Mexico game, which everyone's watching because Leo Messi's playing. Has a really good 2 games since then. Enzo Fernandez market value 65 million now for from 3 international games. Um,
casual.
just casual. So if the Yankees are looking to sign, we hope that we don't give them a world stage where they can show the lazier scouts how good they are. So,
That'd be a bit of a nightmare.
mhm.
But I think that it ultimately comes to he's going to probably get 18 to 20 million a year for like 5 to 6 years, I'd say. I know the Mets are very much in on him. He actually has the same agency as Jose Quintana, who signed with the Mets.
Yep.
So it would make sense. I think Andy Martino said if they package them together, that makes plenty of sense. But if the Yankees could prime away, then I think he's a really nice plan B if we're talking free agency to Rodon. And then behind him, I'd say Evaldi's like already proven that he could be a Yankee, but I still think that they're looking for a number two arm or like a one ace, an ace 1B. Um, so I think that's kind of like their plan C, plan D if they don't get the guy they want to get.
If you could sign 3 players, who are they?
Signs, we're only talking about free agency, right?
Free agency.
Rodon. Um, I kind of still want to get a middle infielder just for the hell of it. I think I would go full pitching though. I would go Rodon and then Sanga just to like fully fortify that. Because if you have Montas as like a deep five or like six at that point, it's like what do you like? How do you compete with that in the AL East?
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still like I'm tempted on a Dansby Swanson or one of these like starting shortstops, but I think at the end of the day, you need a Benintendi in there or a Yoshida. He's another guy that like I think he is on that 30-day posting. He's got that window, so he's going to go to whichever team misses out on Benintendi. That's like the way I look at it.
Yeah.
Or whoever misses out on Nimmo. He's not that good of a defensive player, but his bat is very, very good and smooth as a lefty. Um, a lot of people compare him to like a Don Mattingly type of swing. So if he can even remotely emulate that in Yankee Stadium and like he hit for like 330 this season in Japan. If he can hit for like 285, 360 on base percentage, somewhere around like a 780 to 800 OPS, I think any Yankees fan would take that. So he wouldn't be a bad alternative to
Yeah.
Benintendi.
Matsui like,
Very
basically.
much we like,
Similar
absolutely.
profile. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And especially if you can be as clutch as Matsui was in the playoffs, that's a whole different scenario altogether.
That's a tough bar.
Yeah,
But
I'm not going to quite hold him to that standard yet, just because it's like, Um, but I think Benintendi is still like what they're looking at, just because he's proven that he could play in Yankee Stadium. But if it's true that he doesn't want to stay in New York City because he's not a city guy, so be it. Then I think you like make that hard pivot for Yoshida. But like I said, if you can get Brian Reynolds, he's right there for the taking. So I think that it's worth giving up that prospect capital for a guy like that.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I think I'd be more avid on Yoshida had we not gotten Judge back, just because he gets that, that home run capability. But now I'm looking at our lineup, and especially with DJ's injury, I think Benintendi is my preference just
Yeah.
for that top of the lineup presence. But yeah, Benny, he was a Red Sox guy. He's never been a big city person, so if he doesn't want to sign back, I don't blame him. But I do think the glove and the contact bat is really alluring, especially someone proven at a major league level.
Mhm.
Yoshida looks really good, but you can't assume that a new culture, new language, that's a lot for a big time player, especially when they're not a prospect at like an established pro who isn't going to have any minor league time.
Yeah.
Um, you can't assume they're going to transfer over well. Matsui was a revelation in how well he was, but there's been plenty of Japanese and Korean league flops. So I think Benintendi is the lower ceiling, higher floor,
Hmm.
which is good for the win now team. I'm also on Rodon and probably Russ Stripling.
I
If we
mean,
can,
like, I
yeah.
think that you get Rodon first, and then you get Stripling right after him, and like that
Mhm.
completely evens out the rotation. And
If
then
we miss Rodon, full
yeah,
Senga.
full Senga, absolutely. And like it still gives you the flexibility to move Herman and even a Clark Schmidt and like Debbie Garcia. There's a few guys that are on the fringe of being Yankee starters that I don't quite see it happening. So if you have an opportunity to move him, by all means do it.
Yep.
Actually, did you see so like a little bit of news on DJ?
Hmm.
Apparently he's looking really good and he's running right now and he's taking grounders. And Aaron Boone is very hopeful and he looks like he's not going to need surgery. So there's a very good chance he is ready for the season to start. If not April, he'll be ready by May without surgery. I think that makes it a little bit easier to move Gleyber Torres, which is what our original plan was. So if that's the case, I would prefer to have a surplus of middle infielders just for the sake of moving one off the roster at this point, rather
Yeah.
than just having to rely on Glaber to be there for second base because we don't have a reliable DJ.
That's a good twist. I forgot about that completely. But that's really good to hear from DJ. So that's potentially opening day if they're really conservative. But the main thing is that at this point, surgery would kick him past for at least a month, I would say. So if he doesn't need surgery and he actually looks good, um, and we'll see where that gets, then that's an ideal situation. Also a murmur I heard from winter meetings, Jake Storiale of Talking Yanks. He mentioned on, I think it was Talking Yanks or on Wake and Jake or whatever he was. I heard a clip. He said that the murmurs are on Anthony Volpe. They want about 200 plate appearances from him at AAA. So that's about 6 weeks of everyday games, 6 to 8 weeks. So we could see Volpe maybe as a June call up, late May call up, kind of like when Trout came up in his rookie year, it was like a late May.
Mm,
And then he was the rookie of the year within 3 weeks. But so maybe we'll get that from Volpe.
shit, man. I mean, either way, we're going to end up with at least Peraza on this roster and probably in the starting rotation or
Yeah.
starting lineup to start the season.
Fangraphs roster resource has DJ. Sorry, no, DJ's on the bench. Glaber's at second. Peraza starting at short. Donaldson still at third. Then IKF and DJ both on the bench. So again, that's four middle infielders for two positions.
I feel so mean, but I don't see Glaber starting the season with this team for whatever reason. I can't get myself on board with that. Like I if they make the moves that we want them to make and they don't move him, then that's fine. Like I'll be content with it. But I just don't see him if DJ LeMahieu is fully healthy and they have brought in a Nimmo or they brought in whatever left fielder they bring in Benintendi, especially with Brian Reynolds. I don't see him being on this roster because they're already going to have IKF on the bench, assuming that IKF isn't the one that's moved. That could always happen. But if they're trying to truly shed salary, the best way to do that is move a $10 million contract.
Yeah, that's my thing. I think the equation really is Peraza and or Volpe at major league minimum
Yeah.
or Glaber plus 10 million. I don't think Glaber is 10, there's what that would be $9 million better
Mm-hmm.
than what one of those minor league players gives you. I think it's going to be comparable production. So given the salary cut, or if Hal just wants to hoard, by all
Hmm.
means. But if we're going to be looking at a budget, I think Glaber is a budget option to go because we have the surplus. Or the problem is I don't think Glaber's an effective piece if you bench him or if he's in trade talks. We got into the mental space of Glaber. So
Yeah.
I think you either start him or he's not on the team if you're gonna use him of value. And I think you're better off value wise him not being on the team anymore, as much as that hurts to say.
Yeah, like he's definitely gotten more mature within the last year. Just like I think becoming a dad has very much so like grounded him. And we did see his numbers spike back up. He has shown improvements, but like still at the end of the day, I would much rather see Volpe playing second base over him any day of the week. Um, and I just don't see him fitting in the not so immediate future within the next 3, 4, 5 years of this Yankees window with Judge at the helm. I just don't see him being the guy at second base to hold it down. So I think it's just kind of a waste of time keeping him there. I think one more move that we have to talk about, who we haven't brought up yet, is Tommy Kahnle.
Yep.
That's a big one. So we all remember Tommy from the what was it, 2017 acquisition with him and David Robertson, and we did predict D-Rob coming in, but I don't think we had Kahnle on the roster that we brought up. Or
We floated him. We didn't pick him.
well, the Yankees sure did.
Yep.
2 years, 11.5 million. And this is guy, he only made what, 10 appearances, 11 appearances this season because he was coming back from TJ. He was on the Dodgers roster, came back. His changeup looks just as dominant as did like when he first came with the Yankees. He's been in the system for a minute. He's very familiar with the team. He's got a really good clubhouse just demeanor. He just seems like the friendliest dude in the world, and he is kind of like that golden retriever personality that every team needs in their pen. So I think he's going to be another spark plug, just a lot like how Harrison Bader came in late in the season for us this season. This is a guy I love this deal because it's not crazy with the numbers or anything like that. It's about what, 5.75 million a year. So that's a lot better than trying to get Kenley Jensen for 32 million for 2 years.
Yeah, I'm between Chapman and Britton,
Yeah.
guys who have all-time relief careers, and I appreciate their on-the-field contribution. I appreciate Zach Britton's off-the-field contribution to the CBA and everything. Um, but I'm kind of off that big money for relievers. Especially we had David Robertson 1 year, 5 million. Now we get Tommy Kahnle just over that, a guy who's a massive clubhouse presence. He's like high velo play is high spin. He's a great glue guy for the locker room. I was eating up all those video compilations. In the 2020 spring training before COVID hit, MLB was really increasing their player interaction. So they were miking up players in practices and in games a lot more. And they had it for a day with Tommy Kahnle on the Yankees. And it was no,
I
literally
love that
people.
video.
Yeah, it's the best video. If you can, we'll post it on our socials. So go check us out at Pinstripe Pulse Pod on Instagram, at Pinstripe_Pulse on Twitter. I've started actually posting on Twitter. Um, so we'll go post that in the next few days. But Kahnle, people are literally asking him, "Oh, I'm surprised the mic isn't peaking." You're actually getting some because he's just yelling all the time. I know he's big into fantasy football, R2C2. I've heard him go on, and Maben loved him, CC loved him and stuff. So yeah, really good piece. If you're gonna have a reliever, have them be not just a relief option, but also a fun person when they're when
An
they're around the
embodiment of
clubhouse.
adrenaline. Yeah,
Yeah.
he truly is just like a spark plug, and he brings a whole different characteristic that I think that bullpen needed last season that we were missing. We had some great arms, and like him and Mike King, I'm sure are going to get along great. I think they already obviously know each other because King came up in the system. But it's going to be fun to see all those guys together in the same room again.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that him and Judge had a good relationship going in.
And it has to be said, the reason that Kahnle left in the first place, he got Tommy John surgery due to an arm injury in 2020, after like in the shortened season, right after I think he pitched actually in Washington, like, in that like first series, and then
Yeah.
he got the UCL injury. The Dodgers signed him. The Yankees, that's when we were going for under salary. So he rehabbed with the Dodgers. He came back in the second half of last year, and he looked really good for the Dodgers, as it seemed every reliever does. He had a big, I forget what game it was, but he had a big outing against the Padres, ultimately in the, NLDS that the Dodgers lost to the Padres, where he got out of a big situation, middle of the order, beating Machado and Soto. I think he might have struck both of them out, or he got both of them out.
Something like that. Yeah.
So, recovering from the Tommy John, obviously it has to be said he's not going to necessarily be the same exact pitcher because his arm is different. But he looked really good. He looked like himself. So between the energy and the pitching value, I think that's a great option. 1 year, less than 6 million. I'll take that as our relief free agent signing. And right now we have 7 arms in the bullpen returning. That's a really good spot to be in for a major league club. And I don't think that even includes guys who are technically up and down with options like Marinaccio. Um, I think that's it because Wandy is signed, Loaziga is
Yeah.
signed, Holmes. So
And
I like our bullpen outlook.
what's cool about Tommy too is that he has such a good changeup that he's a great lefty specialist if you want to use him in that department. He's not just going to be like pigeon-toed to being a righty specialist or anything like that. He's going to see both lefties and righties. He's pretty much the righty equivalent of what Wandy has been for us, you know. So I'm super excited to see him back in the fold.
Yeah, one of those pitches in the Soto at bat, I remember he beat Soto with like a dirty like changeup, I think it was on the hip. It had arm side run.
Yeah,
So he is tough for lefties. So he's not going to be specifically a right on right. Um, he might even have reverse splits now. I know Boone is big into to using that. He might be even better against lefties, but we've talked about how much we love Wandy Peralta's attitude and demeanor in games as much as his delivery. I think Canely gives you that even, tenfold, even more.
their tandem is going to be so fun.
Yep.
They're both like head cases in the best way.